Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Jodie and each week I share real stories on love, heartbreak, despair and all the mess in between. And this week we have unbelievable cheating stories to read from Reddit, from boyfriends who are behaving badly on holiday with their girlfriends, to husbands who are asking their wives if they can go on a gaycation with their brother-in-law. And yes, you heard that correct. So stick around and let's get into the first one. I, 27 female, caught my boyfriend, 26 male, being all over another woman while we were on vacation together. I, 24 female, just got back from a vacation with my boyfriend, 26 male, of 6 years, and I'm still hurt by what happened. At the resort, there was a bar downstairs where we were hanging out before going upstairs to the club, which also had a bar. Earlier in the night, I saw him talking to a woman at the downstairs bar. When he saw me walk up, he told her, "I'm here with my girlfriend." She looked right at me and gave me a fake smile. Their energy made it clear they didn't expect me to show up. Then we went upstairs to the club. I noticed he kept leaving to go to different bars, including the downstairs bar where that woman was. He also said he was going to the bathroom downstairs, even though there was a bathroom and a bar in the club. At one point, he disappeared without telling me. I kept calling and texting him with no answer. Finally, he answered and told me to wait for him by the stairs downstairs at the bar. He said he'd meet me there and we'd walk back upstairs together. He took so long that I decided to go and find him. When I walked down the stairs, I saw him walking ahead of me holding that same woman's hand. He was grabbing her, holding her waist, hugging her, and they were all up in each other's faces. I waited and watched them for a few minutes to see how far it would go. Then I walked towards our room. He saw me, made eye contact, but still stayed there with her. I got to my room, went out on the balcony to my swim up to watch him. He was still out there, touching her the same way. I left the balcony to go and get him. When I caught up to him, I grabbed him aggressively. It almost got physical. "I'm surprised you stayed there for so long, watching." I would have been down there immediately on the first time I saw them together. I would have been up in his face understanding what the hell is going on. How could he do that in front of you? Especially since it does not sound like you were okay with any of this whatsoever, like you had had a discussion about this being okay or some sort of plan for the evening. I can't believe he would do that in front of you. I asked him what the fuck he was doing and told him I was done with him, rightly so. That's when he hit me with, "I was doing this for you," and tried to say it was some kind of threesome situation. But no way. She was clearly telling him to go to her room, and they had already passed ours. He never introduced me to her or gave any vibe that we were all involved. That excuse was just him trying to cover himself after being caught. Well, I'm glad that you've clicked onto it, because unless you had actually had a conversation about wanting to have a threesome and identified this woman as somebody that you would like to maybe express those feelings towards, I think it's a bit cheeky for him to just turn around and say, "Oh no, this was the lady that we'd never spoken about, and she has no idea that it's going to be a threesome." But I do. Now that we're back from vacation, he's acting like he's absolutely disgusted with himself. He's been apologizing non-stop, saying how remorseful he is, that he was drunk and doesn't even know what he was thinking. He keeps saying that he's done with drinking for good and that he's turning over a new leaf from here on out. But I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to believe him, but another part of me keeps replaying everything I saw and how far it went. I feel betrayed, embarrassed, and stuck. I didn't deserve any of this, and I just don't know how to move forward. And I think you've answered it for yourself there. The fact that he was willing to take it so far, and for you to have watched, and for him to have seen you watch that. There isn't anywhere that you can go from here, because anything that you do from here on out, you are not going to be able to trust him. And he can blame alcohol, but I think we've all been in situations where, we've had one too many and we don't end up doing or acting like that. And if we do, there's probably some underlying issue as to why we're doing it. Top comment is, "You know what you need to do. Dump this clown and find somebody who actually respects you. Run far, far away and do not look back." As simple as that. Girl, if he does this while you're there, imagine what he's done behind your back. He was going to fuck this woman. He made eye contact with you, so he knows you saw and obviously thinks you're so desperate for him you won't end it. End the relationship and stop second-guessing yourself. I think that is all that you can really do in this situation. I know it's hard, I know it's sad, But what he did is disgusting. And you're the one that will have to relive those moments for the rest of your relationship. It doesn't matter how many times he says sorry or he's remorseful or he feels disgusted in himself. He did it. And if there's something inside of him that was able to do that to you, especially while you were there, and especially when you could see what he was doing and he could see that you could see him, like they said, you don't want to know what's happening behind your back. So figure out how you do it, dump him, and move on, because there are far better people out there for you. And our final story is, my 42 female husband, 42 male, has informed me he intends to go on a gaycation with his brother-in-law, 35 male, in Ibiza. How do I handle this? Okay, I'm ready if you are. Hi there. I really wish I didn't have to make this post, but here goes. So me and my husband have been happily married for about 16 years, give or take. We both have stable careers, good family life, and are fairly fortunate despite the cost of living racking up in the UK right now. We have 2 boys, 15 and 10, and up until this Sunday, thought we had it pretty good. We argue sometimes, of course, but never gotten too bad, and we have a pretty decent sex life with some exploration, but I won't go into that. Long and short is, on Sunday, just after I dropped our boys off at their friends, my husband asked me if we had the house alone, and more importantly, do I have a minute? I said yes, and he sat me down and then got out this printed poster of some sort of orgy and started explaining to me the concept of a gaycation. How it's where straight men go somewhere with sun, sand, and booze and become gay for the duration of the trip, but that's fine because it doesn't actually count. Because what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. I was just completely silent and mortified. Even more so when he said he was looking into booking a trip to Ibiza next year with his brother-in-law, his sister's husband, to experience it for himself. When he finally let me speak, I just said, I need him to be clear with me, is he gay? Because if yes, that's okay, but we need to figure out what happens going forward. I didn't let myself get angry or upset. I was just stunned. He swore up and down how he's not gay and he's 100% attracted to women, and of course he still loves me and our boys. So I said, well, do you think that you're bi maybe? And he got very defensive, saying how I need to drop the accusations and that this is the beauty of a gaycation. It allows straight men to experience gayness without actually being gay, and how it's like going to an aquarium. And again, he was adamant he doesn't find men's body or genitalia exciting at all, but he needs to experience this apparently. I said, well, I'm not really comfortable because even if he was bi, this would be explicitly cheating on me, and he got angry and reiterated that he's not because that's the beauty of the gaycation, etc. I just had enough and left the room. I ignored him for the rest of the day, but we spoke at tea where I again asked him, why does he want to do this so bad if he's not gay? He said how he's interested in how gay men's lives differ to straight men's, and that, unfortunately, once the gaycation begins, it's simply impossible for a man to resist, and he must surrender himself, mind, body, and soul, to the gaycation or be destroyed. I really can't put it into words how surreal it was, because he was speaking so matter-of-factly, and he again insists that this is a thing that all straight men do all the time, and how he's actually doing it a bit late. I just said to him, if he has any love for me, then he can't go ahead with this, and if he does, the marriage will be dead. We didn't speak any more after that. Since then, he's mentioned no more of it, but somehow, and this is what scares me a lot too, that decision genuinely seems to be tearing him up. He didn't go into work on Monday, and only went in half a day yesterday, because he told them he just feels too ill, and he just looks distraught every time I see him. I really don't think he's wholly gay, though I can absolutely believe he's bi, but I'd rather we talk about that in a healthy way, rather this incredibly weird denialism around going on a sex holiday to Ibiza. Has anyone known straight guys to do this and come back and just go back to being straight? Like, surely that can't be a thing that happens. I'm so out of my depth here, and I just don't know how to even initiate the conversation. For the record, I also haven't mentioned it to his sister yet. I don't know how I'd even break it to her. Thanks for any help. I just don't even know what to think, so being able to get this out here has helped even just a little bit. You know, my heart breaks for both of them because I can't imagine how hard it must be to hear that your partner wants to experience sex with somebody else, especially if that person is of the opposite sex, because of course your first thought would jump to, how long has this lie been going on? Has he always found people of the same sex attractive? Has he just been living a lie for so long and not felt comfortable enough to tell me? And the same goes for him, you know? I mean, it seems like outside of him being sucked into some sort of cult like group that's put these thoughts inside of his head, the only other option would be that maybe he is having fantasies of being with another man. And he doesn't feel comfortable saying that out loud yet. Maybe he's had them for a very long time. And again, you're 40 years old. It's a very difficult discussion to have with family, friends, co workers. So I understand how hard it must be, but packaging this all up to be some sort of every straight man does it and they need to submit or be destroyed, it's very odd. But I do think we've got an update. Okay, so wow, this blew up. This has been incredibly sobering, and I think I've now confirmed what I already knew to be the case. The marriage is dead, one way or another. In a way, I was in denial myself about that. I have contacted my sister-in-law and she initially screamed at me, calling me a liar and even insinuated I was trying to steal her husband. She rang me back shortly after, apologised and admitted she was in deep, deep shock. I have asked my parents to look after the boys and we're going to meet tomorrow to discuss this deeper. I have also texted my husband and told him he will need to make alternative accommodation arrangements, but he will not be sleeping here tonight and a bag will be waiting for him. And one of the top comments are, your husband isn't proposing a gaycation. Sorry, I'll just let the dogs finish barking in the garden. Your husband isn't proposing a gaycation. He's proposing cheating on you with men while using magical thinking to pretend it doesn't count. The fact that he's planning this with his sister's husband makes it even more disturbing. His bizarre explanation about surrendering mind, body, and soul isn't straight man curiosity. It's someone desperately trying to justify exploring his sexuality while keeping his heterosexual marriage. His depression about not being able to go isn't about missing a vacation. It's about being forced to confront his sexuality without his convenient, what happens in Ibiza stays in Ibiza excuse. His meltdown over not going shows how desperately he wants to avoid facing this reality. He just doesn't want to face what he's going through. But the fact that the brother-in-law is involved as well is unbelievably strange, and I'm looking forward to see how that kind of transpires. So when I last posted, I'd contacted my husband to tell him he wouldn't be staying at home tonight and a bag would be waiting for him. As you can imagine, we argued quite badly. I won't go into the specific details, but no, I'm 100% on board with the fact at a minimum he's bi. Might even be gay altogether. We've had arguments in the past, but I've genuinely never seen him have such a childish tantrum before, screaming about how I just don't understand the gaycation. Absolutely despise that phrase now, and insinuating I'm actually homophobic because I refuse to allow him to participate in this cultural exchange with the gay community. A lot of you have said to ask him if it'd be acceptable if the roles were in reverse. And I did say, would it be acceptable if I went and slept with other guys during that week? Like fucking clockwork. He was very angry and offended, saying it's completely different because a gaycation means nothing, and what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation, etc. So it doesn't actually count, whereas I would just be straight up cheating. Well, I turned it around on him, no, but you see what happens in Manchester stays in Manchester. It doesn't mean anything, it doesn't count. It's like bird watching. And I think it got through to him. He went all quiet and then started crying, admitting the thought of me sleeping with other men is destroying his heart, but relationships need sacrifices, so agreed, while in tears, that when he goes on the gaycation, I'll get 1 week in Manchester to do whatever I want. He doesn't want me to, but that's fair in a twisted way, he supposed. I told him to get out of my house. Thankfully, he left without a fight. I know it's incredibly petty, but I also drained the joint bank account, legal in the UK, so that he couldn't try to use it against me. About an hour later, I got rang up by his mum, my mother-in-law, who just screamed and screamed at me about being a cheating, how I was horrible, what about the kids, etc. When I finally got my composure back, I just said, "Ask your son about the gaycation." Obviously, at first she got angry, but I said, "No, just ask him about the gaycation. He'll explain," but she called me a joke and hung up. Later on, getting into the evening, got another phone call from her in floods of tears. She was very apologetic, and I told her she doesn't need to be the one to apologize. She was so upset, she put father-in-law on the phone, who, while he sounded calm, I could just sort of tell he was on the warpath. Again, very apologetic, and said he overheard that phrase, "Ask my husband," and my husband initially said, "No, it's nothing," before explaining how it's a modern thing men do, etc., and gave them the same spiel about what happens on the gaycation, men cannot resist the gaycation, how a man must surrender to the gaycation, etc. Father-in-law just said they told him to leave or they'd call the police. Doesn't care where he goes, but he wasn't staying there. Husband tried to call me while I was on the phone, but I just ignored it, and father-in-law said he was so sorry for me and that they have my corner in this, so that's one thing. I told them to be there for their daughter because it sounds like brother-in-law is involved. Husband didn't tell them that. And father-in-law just said that he had to go because he was so angry. I got a text from my husband after the phone call, which was all weirdly rambly, saying about how I'd used the gaycation to destroy his marriage and destroy his life, and again insinuated I and his parents were homophobic for doing such a thing. Told him we'll talk when he grows up and blocked his number. I took a day off work myself to have the locks changed this morning, so that's £500 gone, but whatever. At least I know he won't be coming back. I'm going to look into how to proceed with a divorce, and then we'll move from there. Oh, of course, there's also the brother-in-law. So I haven't yet met with sister-in-law. She was in such a state and has taken this far worse than I have for reasons that will be clear soon. We're going to maybe try tomorrow, but we did talk over the phone and I eavesdropped on the conversation with her husband where she put the phone on speaker and I went on mute. Her husband got home earlier, she made him come home, told him there was an emergency, and just said to him, "Can you please explain what a gaycation is?" She told me afterwards she was praying he'd look confused or just like, "What?" or anything like that, but instead he sat her down and explained that a gaycation is a new thing where straight men go to gay hotspots and participate in gay sex acts, but it doesn't count because there's no investment, and because what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. He said it's like writing down angry thoughts and putting them in a drawer. You never have to see them again. The whole time, my sister-in-law is in tears as he just calmly bats off the same points my husband did about how it doesn't count, and he even did the whole "it's impossible to resist, you must surrender or be destroyed" shit. I seriously think that they must be speaking to a dominatrix or something. Are there even male doms? Because surely neither of them are that into this to actually make that up on their own. I really don't want to go into what was discussed, for her sake, but it did become very apparent to me that the brother-in-law is into porn and at times conflated that with the concept of a gaycation. There was this utterly surreal moment where my sister-in-law is just trying to wrap her head around this while also in floods of tears, and he explains so genuinely, so matter-of-factly, that for most men, the gaycation is either a one-time or an annual thing, but some men go on gaycation for years, and others simply never return because they use hypnosis and mind control to be totally feminized into a state of permanent pseudo-gayness. She said in disbelief, and I'm rephrasing, "Surely if you're doing it willingly, it's because you want to. That makes you gay." And he said, "No, because that's the beauty of a gaycation. You can do all this gay stuff, but you don't interact with the wider gay life experience." He said it's not a long-term basis and was adamant this is something all straight men do, but that she wouldn't get it because she's a woman. Then there were more insinuations of her homophobia. Well, that marriage is dead too, I suppose. The whole ordeal ended when she said to him he has a choice to make and he said no. He doesn't need to make this choice because the beauty of the gaycation is that it allows him to keep his marriage because it doesn't count. She said that's not the choice is whether he's leaving the house that night or she is. Only good thing he did was leave. Me and my sister-in-law spoke about it afterwards and I'm just still utterly stunned. I understand she's gone to her parents for the support. What exactly did we do to have our lives destroyed in such an abrupt, bizarre, embarrassing way? Per some advice, I'm going to look at devices and bank statements to see if I can find any definitive proof of cheating. After that, I suppose figure out how I tell my boys why their father won't be coming home. I spoke to my other sister-in-law and gave her a skimmed-down version of it. She asked her husband, and thankfully he was deeply confused, but then mentioned about 2 years ago at a birthday party, he was approached by my husband and brother-in-law about signing up to some online boot camp around BDSM cross-dressing. He assumed that they were taking the piss out of him, so told them to fuck off and never really thought of it again. The fact that this has been going on for that long is making me want to throw up. See, that whole online boot camp thing is what confuses me, because it does seem like that they've been pulled into some sort of cult-like operation that is helping them or making them feel this way, that they're all spewing out the same words. It sounds like these people have never heard anything like that before, and it's so strange. And honestly, if anybody knows how something like this goes about happening, was it just the fact that him and his brother-in-law at some point connected on the fact that they were both questioning their sexuality? Or is there something deeper here? Because this story is so mind-boggling. And the top commentator said, your husband and brother-in-law are deep in a shared delusion that's destroyed 2 families. Their identical talking points about surrender and destruction prove that this was coordinated. They're not just planning to cheat, they're already involved in some online community that's warped their thinking. The fact that they both instantly launched into the same script about gaycation shows this isn't spontaneous. You made the right call draining the account and changing the locks. Their attempts to flip this into accusations of homophobia show how desperately they're trying to avoid responsibility. The identical language, the bizarre aquarium and the bird-watching analogies, the talk of surrender or be destroyed, they're in some online echo chamber that's completely divorced from reality. When your husband agreed to let you have a Manchester week, while crying, he revealed the whole lie. He knows exactly what this is, cheating. He just wants permission to do it while denying you the same. The talk about hypnosis and permanent feminization reveals just how far this goes. Get a lawyer, protect your assets, and document everything. This will get worse before it gets better. Focus on protecting yourself and your children because they're just too far gone in their shared fantasy to see the destruction that they're causing. What a pathetic hill for 2 men to die on. They destroyed their marriages, traumatized their families, and alienated their parents, all while insisting none of it counts because they made up special rules about it. They want to cheat without consequences, and they found an online community that validates this fantasy. I mean, reading that has literally given me goosebumps because that comment just hits the nail on the head. They're so far gone and they still can't even see that what they're doing is wrong. And they think that they can go and spend a few weeks away experiencing this new life and that they can just come back and that it doesn't matter. And I love this. What happens in Ibiza stays in Ibiza. What happens on a gaycation stays in a gaycation. That is just not true. It's never been true, never will be true. And so what a way to end this. And look, love is complicated. We all know that. But if your partner is booking secret Airbnbs or flirting on vacation or planning a gaycation with your brother-in-law, then you need to start asking some questions. So let me know in the comments what you thought about these stories. Have you heard of anything like this before? Have you experienced anything like this before? I would love to know. And as always, thanks for sticking around and I'll see you next time. Bye.